Hello, Cardinals, and welcome to our next installment of Beloved. It was a tiny church, no bigger than a rich man's parlor. The pews had no backs, and since the congregation was also the choir, it didn't need a stall. Certain members had been assigned the construction of a platform to raise the preacher a few inches above his congregation, but it was a less than urgent task since the major elevation, a white oak cross, had already taken place. Before it was the Church of the Holy Redeemer, it was a dry goods shop that had no use for side windows, just front ones for display. These were papered over while members considered whether to paint or curtain them, how to have privacy without losing the little light that might want to shine on them. In the summer, the doors were left open for ventilation. In winter, an iron stove in the aisle did what it could. At the front of the church was a sturdy porch where customers used to sit, and children laughed at the boy who got his head stuck between the railings. On a sunny and windless day in January, it was actually warmer out there than inside if the iron stove was cold. The damp cellar was fairly warm, but there was no light lighting the pallet or the wash basin or the nail from which a man's clothes could be hung. And an oil lamp in a cellar was sad, so Paul D. sat on the porch steps and got additional warmth from a bottle of liquor jammed in his coat pocket. Warmth and red eyes. He held his wrist between his knees, not to keep his hands still, but because he had nothing else to hold on to. His tobacco tin, blown open, spilled contents that floated freely and made him their play and prey. He couldn't figure out why it took so long. He may as well have jumped in the fire with Sixo, and they could have had a good laugh. Surrender was bound to come anyway. Why not meet it with a laugh, shouting 7-0? Why not? Why the delay? He had already seen his brother wave goodbye from the back of a dray, fried chicken in his pocket, tears in his eyes. Mother, father, didn't remember the one, never saw the other. He was the youngest of 3 half-brothers, same mother, different fathers, sold to Garner and kept there, forbidden to leave the farm for 20 years. Once, in Maryland, he met 4 families of slaves who had all been together for 100 years. Great-grands, grands, mothers, fathers, uncles, cousins, children, half white, part white, all black, mixed with Indian. He watched them with awe and envy, and each time he discovered large families of black people, he made them identify over and over who each one was, what relation, who, in fact, belonged to who. That there's my auntie, this here's her boy, yonder is my pap's cousin, my mam was married twice, this is my half-sister, and these are her 2 children, now my wife. Nothing like that had ever been his, and growing up at Sweet Home, he didn't miss it. He had his brothers, 2 friends, baby Suggs in the kitchen, a boss who showed them how to shoot and listened to what they had to say, a mistress who made their soap and never raised her voice. For 20 years they had all lived in that cradle, until baby left, Setha came, and Hallie took her. He made a family with her, and Sixo was hell-bent to make one with the 30-mile woman. When Paul D. waved goodbye to his oldest brother, the boss was dead, the mistress nervous, and the cradle already split. Sixo said the doctor made Mrs. Garner sick. Said he was giving her to drink what stallions got when they broke a leg, and no gunpowder could be spared. And had it not been for school teachers' new rules, he would have told her so. They laughed at him. Sixo had a knowing tale about everything, including Mr. Garner's stroke, which he said was a shot in his ear put there by a jealous neighbor. Where's the blood? They asked him. There was no blood. Mr. Garner came home, bent over his mare's neck, sweating in blue-white. Not a drop of blood. Sixo grunted, the only one of them not sorry to see him go. Later, however, he was mighty sorry. They all were. Why she call on him? Paul D. asked. Why she need the school teacher? She needs somebody can figure, said Hallie. You can do figures? Not like that. No, man, said Sixo. She need another white on the place. What for? What you think? What you think? Well, that's the way it was. Nobody counted on Garner dying. Nobody thought he could. How about that? Everything rested on Garner being alive. Without his life, each of theirs fell to pieces. Now, ain't that slavery, or what is it? At the peak of his strength, taller than tall men and stronger than most, they clipped him, Paul D. First his shotgun and then his thoughts, for schoolteacher didn't take advice from Negroes. The information they offered he called backtalk and developed a variety of corrections, which he recorded in his notebook to re-educate them. He complained that they ate too much, rested too much, talked too much, which was certainly true compared to him, because schoolteacher ate little, spoke less, and rested not at all. Once he saw them playing a pitching game, and his look of deeply felt hurt was enough to make Paul D. blink. He was as hard on his pupils as he was on them, except for the corrections. For years, Paul D. believed schoolteacher broke into children what Garner had raised into men, and it was that made them run off. Now, plagued by the contents of his tobacco tin, he wondered how much difference there really was between before schoolteacher and after. Garner called and announced them men, but only on Sweet Home, and by his leave. Was he naming what he saw or creating what he did not? That was the wonder of Sixo, and even Hallie. It was always clear to Paul D. that those two were men whether Garner said so or not. It troubled him that, concerning his own manhood, he could not satisfy himself on that point. Oh, he did manly things, but was that Garner's gift or his own will? What would he have been anyway before Sweet Home without Garner? In Sixo's country, or his mother's, or God help him on the boat? Did a white man saying it make it so? Suppose Garner woke up one morning and changed his mind, took the word away. Would they have run then? And if he didn't, would the Pauls have stayed there all their lives? Why did the brothers need the one whole night to decide, to discuss whether they would join Sixo and Hallie? Because they had been isolated in a wonderful lie, dismissing Hallie and baby Suggs's life before Sweet Home as bad luck, ignorant of or amused by Sixo's dark stories, protected and convinced they were special, never suspecting the problem of Alfred, Georgia, being so in love with the look of the world, putting up with anything and everything just to stay alive in a place where a moon he had no right to was nevertheless there, loving small and in secret. His little love was a tree, of course, but not like brother, old, wide, and beckoning. In Alfred, Georgia, there was an aspen, too young to call a sapling, just a shoot no taller than his waist, the kind of thing a man would cut to whip his horse. Song murder in the aspen. He stayed alive to sing songs that murdered life and watched an aspen that confirmed it, and never for a minute did he believe he could escape, until it rained. Afterward, after the Cherokee pointed and sent him running towards blossoms, he wanted simply to move, go, pick up one day and be somewhere else the next. Resigned to life without aunts, cousins, children, even a woman, until Setha. And then she moved him. Just when doubt, regret, and every single unasked question was packed away, long after he believed he had willed himself into being, at the very time and place he wanted to take root, she moved him, from room to room, like a rag doll. Sitting on the porch of a dry goods church, a little bit drunk and nothing much to do, he could have these thoughts. Slow what-if thoughts that cut deep but struck nothing solid a man could hold on to. So he held his wrists. Passing by that woman's life, getting in it and letting it get in him had set him up for this fall. Wanting to live out his life with a whole woman was new, and losing the feeling of it made him want to cry and think deep thoughts that struck nothing solid. When he was drifting, thinking only about the next meal and night's sleep, when everything was packed tight in his chest, he had no sense of failure, of things not working out. Anything that worked out at all worked out. Now he wondered what all went wrong, and starting with the plan everything had. It was a good plan, too. Worked out in every detail with every possibility of error eliminated. Sixo, hitching up the horse, is speaking English again and tells Hallie what his 30-mile woman told him. That 7 Negroes on her place were joining 2 others going north. That the 2 others had done it before and knew the way. That one of the 2, a woman, would wait for them in the corn when it was high. One night and half of the next day she would wait, and if they came, she would take them to the caravan where the others would be hidden. And then she would rattle, and that would be the sign. Sixo was going, his woman was going, and Hallie was taking his whole family. The 2 Pauls say they need time to think about it, time to wonder where they will end up and how they will live, what work, who will take them in, should they try to get to Paul F., whose owner, they remember, lived in something called the Trace. It takes them one evening's conversation to decide. Now all they have to do is wait through the spring till the corn is high, as it ever got, and the moon is fat, and plan. Is it better to leave in the dark to get a better start, or to go at daybreak to be able to see the way better? Sixo spits at the suggestion. Night gives them more time and the protection of color. He does not ask them if they are afraid. He manages some dry runs to the corn at night, burying blankets and 2 knives near the creek. Will Setha be able to swim the creek, they ask him. It will be dry, he says, when the corn is tall. There is no food to put by, but Setha says she'll get a jug of cane syrup or molasses and some bread when it's near the time to go. She only wants to be sure the blankets are where they should be, for they will need them to tie her baby on her back and to cover them during the journey. There are no clothes other than what they wear, and of course no shoes. The knives will help them eat, but they bury rope in a pot as well. A good plan. They watch and memorize the comings and goings of school teacher and his pupils, what is wanted when and where, how long it takes. Mrs. Garner, restless at night, is sunk in sleep all morning. Some days, the pupils and their teacher do lessons until breakfast. 1 day a week, they skip breakfast completely and travel 10 miles to church, expecting a large dinner upon their return. School teacher writes in his notebook after supper. The pupils clean, mend, or sharpen tools. Setha's work is the most uncertain because she's on call for Mrs. Garner any time, including nighttime when the pain or the weakness or the downright loneliness is too much for her. So, Sixo and the Pauls will go after supper and wait in the creek for the 30-mile woman. Hallie will bring Setha and the 3 children before dawn, before the sun, before the chickens and the milking cow need attention. So by the time smoke should be coming from the cooking stove, they will be in or near the creek with the others. That way, if Mrs. Garner needs Setha in the night and calls her, Setha will be there to answer. They only have to wait through the spring. But Setha was pregnant in the spring, and by August is so heavy with child she may not be able to keep up with the men who can carry the children, but not her. But neighbors, discouraged by Garner when he was alive, now feel free to visit Sweet Home and might appear in the right place at the wrong time. But Setha's children cannot play in the kitchen anymore, so she's dashing back and forth between house and quarters, fidgety and frustrated, trying to watch over them. They're too young for men's work, and the baby girl is 9 months old. Without Mrs. Garner's help, her work increases, as do school teachers' demands. But after the conversation about the shoat, Sixo is tied up with the stock at night, and locks are put on bins, pens, sheds, coops, the tack room, and the barn door. There's no place to dart into or congregate. Sixo keeps a nail in his mouth now to help him undo the rope when he has to. But Hallie's told to work his extra on Sweet Home and has no call to be anywhere other than where school teacher tells him. Only Sixo, who has been stealing away to see his woman, and Hallie, who has been hired away for years, know what lies outside Sweet Home and how to get there. It's a good plan. It can be done right under the watchful pupils and their teacher. But they had to alter it, just a little. First, they changed the leaving. They memorized the direction Hallie gives them. Sixo, needing time to untie himself, break open the door, and not disturb the horses, will leave later, joining them at the creek with the 30-mile women. All 4 will go straight to the corn. Hallie, who also needs more time now because of Setha, decides to bring her and the children at night, not wait until first light. They'll go straight to the corn and not assemble at the creek. The corn stretches to their shoulders. It will never be higher. The moon is swelling. They can hardly harvest or chop or clear or pick or haul for listening for a rattle that's not bird or snake. Then, one morning, they hear it, or Hallie does, and begins to sing to the others. Hush, hush, someone's calling my name. Hush, hush, someone's calling my name. Oh, Lord, what shall I do? On his dinner break, he leaves the field. He has to. He has to tell Setha that he heard the sign. For 2 successive nights, she's been with Mrs. Garner, and he can't chance it that she will not know that this night he cannot be. The Pauls see him go. From underneath Brother's shade, where they're chewing corn cake, they see him swinging along. The bread tastes good. They lick sweat from their lips to give it a saltier flavor. School teacher and his pupils are already at the house eating dinner. Hallie swings along. He's not singing now. Nobody knows what happened, except for the churn. That was the last anybody ever saw of Hallie. What Paul D knew was that Hallie disappeared, never told Setha anything, and was next seen squatting in butter. Maybe when he got to the gate and asked to see Setha, a school teacher heard a tint of anxiety in his voice, the tint that would make him pick up his ever-ready shotgun. Maybe Hallie made the mistake of saying "my wife" in some way that would put a light in school teacher's eye. Setha says now that she heard shots, but she did not look out the window of Mrs. Garner's bedroom. But Hallie was not killed or wounded that day because Paul D saw him later, after she had run off with no one's help, after 6-0 laughed and his brother disappeared, saw him greased and flat-eyed as a fish. Maybe school teacher shot after him, shot at his feet to remind him of the trespass. Maybe Hallie got in the barn, hid there, and got locked in with the rest of school teacher's stock. Maybe anything. He disappeared and everybody was on his own. Paul A. goes back to moving timber after dinner. They're to meet at quarters for supper. He never shows up. Paul D. leaves for the creek on time, believing, hoping Paul A. has gone on ahead. Certain school teacher has learned something. Paul D. gets to the creek and it's as dry as 6-0 promised. He waits there with a 30-mile woman for 6-0 and Paul A. Only 6-0 shows up, his wrists bleeding, his tongue licking his lips like a flame. You see Paul A? No. Hallie? No. No sign of them? No sign. Nobody in quarters but the children. Setha? Her children sleep. She must be there still. I can't leave without Paul A. I can't help you. Should I go back and look for them? I can't help you. What you think? I think they go straight to the corn. 6-0 turns then to the woman, and they clutch each other and whisper. She is lit now with some glowing, some shining that comes from inside her. Before, when she knelt on the creek pebbles with Paul D, she was nothing, a shape in the dark breathing lightly. 6-0 is about to crawl out to look for the knives he buried, and he hears something. He hears nothing. Forget the knives. Now, the three of them climb up the bank, and school teacher, his pupils, and 4 other white men move toward them with lamps. 6-0 pushes the 30-mile woman, and she runs further on the creek bed. Paul D and 6-0 run the other way towards the woods. Both are surrounded and tied. The air gets sweet then, perfumed by the things honeybees love. Tied like a mule, Paul D feels how dewy and inviting the grass is. He's thinking about that and where Paul A might be when 6-0 turns and grabs the mouth of the nearest pointing rifle, and he begins to sing. 2 others shove Paul D and tie him to a tree. School teacher is saying, "Alive, alive, I want him alive." 6-0 swings and cracks the ribs of one, but with bound hands he cannot get the weapon in position to use it in any other way. All the white men have to do is wait. For his song, perhaps, to end. 5 guns are trained on him while they listen. Paul D cannot see them when they step away from lamplight. Finally, one of them hits 6-0 in the head with his rifle, and when he comes to, a hickory fire is in front of him, and he's tied at the waist to a tree. School teacher has changed his mind. This one will never be suitable. The song must have convinced him. The fire keeps failing, and the white men are put out with themselves at not being prepared for this emergency. They came to capture, not kill. What they can manage is only enough for cooking hominy. Dry faggots are scarce, and the grass is slick with dew. By the light of the hominy fire, 6-0 straightens. He's through with his song. He laughs. A rippling sound like Setha's son makes when they tumble in hay or splash in rainwater. His feet are cooking. The cloth of his trousers smoke, and he laughs. Something's funny. Paul D guesses what it is when 6-0 interrupts his laughter to call out, 7-0, 7-0. Smoky, stubborn fire. They shoot him to shut him up. They have to. Shackled, walking through the perfumed things honeybees love, Paul D hears the men talking and for the first time learns his worth. He's always known, or believed he did, his value. As a hand, a laborer who could make profit on the farm. But now he discovers his worth, which is to say he learns his price. The dollar value of his weight, his strength, his heart, his brain, his penis, and his future. As soon as the white men get to where they've tied their horses and mount them, they're calmer, talking among themselves about the difficulty they face, the problems. Voices remind schoolteacher about the spoiling these particular slaves have had at Garner's hand. There's laws against what he done, letting hire out their own time to buy themselves. He even let them have guns. And you think he mated them to get some more? Hell no. He planned for them to marry, if that don't beat all. Schoolteacher sighs and says, doesn't he know it? He had come to put the place aright, and now he's faced greater ruin than what Garner left for it, because the loss of 2, at least, and maybe 3, because he's not sure they will find the one called Hallie. The sister-in-law is too weak to help out, and doggone if now there ain't a full-scale stampede on his hands. He would have to trade this here one for $900 if he could get it, and set out to secure the breeding one, her foal, and the other one if he found him. With the money from this here one, he could get 2 young ones, 12 or 15 years old. And maybe with the breeding one, her 3 pickaninnies, and whatever the foal might be, he and his nephews would have 7, and Sweet Home would be worth the trouble it was causing him. Look to you like Lillian gonna make it? Touch and go, touch and go. You was married to her sister-in-law, wasn't you? I was. She frail too? A bit. Fever took her. Well, you don't need to stay no widower in these parts. My cogitation right now is Sweet Home. Can't say as I blame you, that's some spread. They put a 3-spoke collar on him so he can't lie down, and they chain his ankles together. The number he heard with his ear is now in his head. 2. 2? 2 lost? Paul D. thinks his heart is jumping. They're going to look for Hallie, not Paul A. They must have found Paul A., and if the white man finds you, it means you're surely lost. Schoolteacher looks at him for a long time before he closes the door of the cabin. Carefully he looks. Paul D. does not look back. It's sprinkling now, a teasing August rain that raises expectations it cannot fill. He thinks he should have sung along, loud, something loud and rolling to go with Sixo's tune, but the words put him off. He didn't understand the words, although it shouldn't have mattered because he understood the sound. Hatred so loose it was Juba. The warm sprinkle comes and goes, comes and goes. He thinks he hears sobbing that seems to come from Mrs. Garner's window, but it could be anything, anyone, even a she-cat making her yearning known. Tired of holding his head up, he let his chin rest on the collar and speculates on how he can hobble over to the grate, boil a little water, and throw in a handful of meal. That's what he was doing when Setha comes in, rain-wet and big-bellied, saying she's going to cut. She's just come back from taking her children to the corn. The whites were not around. She couldn't find Hallie. Who was caught? Did Sixo get away? Paul A.? He tells her what he knows. Sixo's dead. The 30-mile woman ran, and he doesn't know what happened to Paul A. or Hallie. Where could he be, she asks. Paul D. shrugs because he can't shake his head. You saw Sixo die. You sure? I'm sure. Was he woke when it happened? Did he see it coming? He was woke and laughing. Sixo laughed. You should have heard him, Setha. Setha's dress steams before the little fire over which he's boiling water. It's hard to move about when shackled ankles and the neck jewelry embarrasses him. In his shame, he avoids her eyes, but when he doesn't, he sees only black in them, no whites. She says she's going, and he thinks she will never make it to the gate, but he doesn't dissuade her. He knows he'll never see her again. And right then and there, his heart stopped. The pupils must have taken her to the barn for sport right afterward, and when she told Mrs. Garner, they took down the cowhide. Who in the hell or on this earth would have thought that she would have cut anyway? They must have believed, what with her belly and her back, that she wasn't going anywhere. He wasn't surprised to learn that they had tracked her down in Cincinnati because, when he thought about it now, her price was greater than his, property that reproduced itself without cost. Remembering his own price down to the cent that schoolteacher was able to get for him, he wondered what Setha's would have been. What had baby Suggs been? How much did Hallie owe still besides his labor? What did Mrs. Garner get for Paul F.? More than $900? How much more? $10? $20? Schoolteacher would know. He would know the worth of everything. It accounted for the real sorrow in his voice when he pronounced Sixo unsuitable. Who could be fooled into buying a singing with a gun, shouting 7070, because his 30-mile woman got away with his blossoming seed? What a laugh. So rippling and full of glee it put out the fire. And it was Sixo's laughter that was on his mind, not the bit in his mouth when they hitched him to the buckboard. And then he saw Hallie, and then the rooster, smiling as if to say, "You ain't seen nothin' yet." How could a rooster know about Alfred, Georgia?